All right, hey everybody, Sean Muller, founder and CEO of iSpot. Is everybody still awake? You guys look like you sat through an attribution conference all day. What I'm going to focus on today, just real briefly, iSpot.tv, we measure attention and conversion analytics for television. And I'm really going to focus on a lot of advancements that have been made in the last several years on TV attribution. So I'm going to kind of walk you guys today what true multi-touch attribution for television looks like and how you hook those touch points into other mediums. So what am I doing here? Oh, there we go. So we work with hundreds of brands, hundreds of major brands, a lot of major TV advertisers. And this is the picture we see at every brand. This is almost like without deviation. When we talk to a CMO or to the heads of media or heads of analytics at any brand, this is what we see. We see a media mix model. Of course, there's a lot of flavors of that. It could be built in-house or using a vendor and using a myriad of different methodologies. Almost always, folks have digital attribution models that, again, are in most cases, fairly well developed. But when it comes to TV, this is what we see. It's basically a hole in TV where there's literally either nothing, some rudimentary last click model, some study that gets done once or twice a year, and there's really nothing that's actionable there on TV. So we basically come in and we just turn this light switch on. It's that simple. Let's do that again. It's kind of fun. Oh boy, let's not do that again. Okay. So what we do is we put TV attribution on level playing field with digital. So how do we do that? We start with ACR data, with automatic content recognition data that we've built over the last 5 years. This is very complex, and I'll go into some of the complexities. Then we rely on the home IP address as an anchor to connect the television set into the digital world, and then we connect into a myriad of digital KPIs and generate our analytics on top of that. So why are web KPIs so important for just about every category? A couple of reasons. Number one, it allows you to tap into the top of the funnel, right? Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to create a direct connection between TV impressions and top of funnel. Because guess what? Once you get into the funnel, there's a myriad of other variables that you got to deal with. There's consumer experience, there's pricing, promotion. And so even though we do go all the way down the funnel, we actually like to connect to the top of the funnel. And of course, most digital models utilize digital KPIs, as you would expect. And we basically see every category, every imaginable category, from retail to auto, wireless, financial, insurance, travel, games. They all have very critical web KPIs. The only exception to that is CPG, but we're not. I've got 11 minutes left, so we'll keep going. So the way the market historically has connected TV to web KPIs is by doing really a last click model or a spike analysis. If you're still doing a spike analysis for television, please stop, like immediately. This chart basically tells you everything you need to know. So this is from across over 50 clients of ours. This is what the attribution window looks like for when people take action after an exposure. So you can see only 3 to 8% of web visits occur within 5 minutes of a TV ad airing. So if you're doing a spike analysis, you're missing at least 90% of what's actually going on. Okay, so there's 3 critical foundations for creating a true multi-touch, digital-like attribution model for television. You have to measure TV impressions in a digital-like manner. And really the only way to do that today is being right on the glass and treating a television set as a digital device and using ACR technologies to actually detect the ad. So that's first and foremost, but there's a lot of misunderstanding in the marketplace about ACR data. There's actually very little expertise in the marketplace around ACR data, and especially ACR for measurement. You hear of a lot of ACR for retargeting, but ACR for measurement is a completely different beast. Then you need to have scalable tracking of web KPIs and a connective fabric to connect those two things, and to be able to do that accurately and at scale, and that's not easy. And then finally, once you get these 2 foundational blocks, you got to have rigorous analytics that are repeatable, that use rigorous methodologies, that are actionable. And are actionable to how TV is bought, not to how digital is bought. So these are the three primary components. And I think somebody said this earlier, that maybe at least 50% of the complexity is in the data. And I think that's generally true. But each of these components have their own complexity. So I'm going to go through these three pillars, if you will, of foundational elements. So let's start with using ACR data for ads for measurement. So there's a few myths in the marketplace about ACR data. It's actually not very well understood, but everybody loves to talk about it. I can't tell you how many meetings I go into and people just start, oh yeah, I've got some ACR data and ACR this and that. I mean, most people just really do not understand what ACR data means and how to take that data and make it usable, make it actionable, make it accurate. So ACR data is raw. It is very raw. It takes years to transform and put it into a state where you would actually want to put it into an attribution model. Also, ACR data is traditionally for programs, not for ads. So what we have developed here at iSpot over the last 5 years is ACR data specifically for ads, and there's a major difference. And again, it's only usable for ads if you're doing it at scale across all ads. If you take just one campaign and feed it manually through an ACR system, it's massively inaccurate. It's not going to detect in many, many cases, or it's going to detect at a lower level than it should have been detected, because a lot of networks reformat the ad, the picture. And I'm not going to go into the weeds here. I could spend hours on this topic. And also, ACR scale is typically exaggerated in scale. I can't tell you, like earlier today, somebody said they have 40 million television sets. There aren't 40 million television sets that can collect ACR data. So people tend to exaggerate the scale. And for us, we've partnered with Vizio, which today has the largest footprint of opted-in ACR data, which today the active count is a 7.3, and 7.3 million. We're very transparent in all of our reporting. So if you ever see anybody that works with ACR data but doesn't actually show you how many devices are underneath and detected, there's a reason for that. So again, over the last 5 years, we've developed a very robust media measurement platform that utilizes ACR. It starts with cataloging every single ad on television. Then it goes into reformatting the ads so they will detect correctly when ACR is employed on them. Then this catalog is fed through 7.3 million television sets of Vizio. ACR data comes back to us. That's when the work starts. 80% of the work goes into this transform and match. You got to take this data, you got to clean it, transform it, you got to attribute it, you got to understand, is this a national buy, is this a local buy, is this an OTT buy? Very complex. So finally, you got to now connect this ACR data into web KPIs, and the only way you can do that is if you have a scalable web tracking mechanism. So today, the iSpot pixel runs on over 50 brands' websites. These are some of the largest advertisers on television. So this is massive scale. These are some of the largest websites on the web. And across these websites, we have now mapped 570 million digital devices into our TV, into our population, the iSpot population, which accounts for about 80% of internet users in the US. And within that, 43.3 million devices we've been able to definitively map into 4.5 million television sets. And this is very hard to do. It's not a simple IP address match. You have to understand the nature of the devices and the IP addresses and the stability of the IP addresses and whether they're public or they're private. So this is all very, very complex. And then finally, once you get those two pieces in place, you got to have actionable analytics that are backed by rigorous methodology. So what that means, you got to have real-time and ongoing reporting, not like once a quarter, once a year study. You got to be able to measure lift accurately, and you got to have a control group that uses a very rigorous methodology. And you got to be very, very granular. You got to be able to attribute every touch point, every creative, every program placement. And you have to align the analytics. I often see like digital attribution companies, producing TV attribution reports, and it's just almost silly, right? I mean, you have to produce analytics in a manner of how television is actually bought. And you got to bridge the gap between linear and OTT. In other words, you got to measure linear and OTT in the exact same way when you come up with conversion rates, so they can be compared. And in our world, our Pixel runs on all OTT platforms. It's approved on all OTT platforms. So we actually literally get a conversion rate and compare it apples to apples. Spoiler alert, the OTT's platform do generally have a higher conversion rate, but the scale is still tiny, very, very little incremental reach. So for multi-touch attribution, especially if you're working with a lot of different industries and clients, you got to have a variable attribution window, right? You got to go down to very short windows, and you got to go out to longer windows. And also even within the same industry, our wireless carrier clients, for example, when they're running a promotion, they want to use a shorter attribution window versus when they're running brand performance. And then you got to have flexibility in how you attribute the credit points, right? You can do it equal credit, or you can do a weighted credit model where the more recent touch point gets a higher share. So this is what an iSpot dashboard looks like. It updates every day, and it literally creates a baseline for each of our clients and partners. And so we establish a baseline out of the gate of the conversion rate, and now we can start optimizing creative and media and actually trend that baseline. So establishing a baseline, hugely important out of the gate, and then optimizing against that. Understanding lift, we covered that through a lot of sessions. That's very important. And for television, one of the things that we're able to do, because we track everybody's creative, we're able to choose whether to include competitors or not in the control group, and also choose whether or not to just look at the general population versus the more targeted population, or even narrow it only to networks that we know a particular brand is buying on. So there's a lot of rigorous methodologies that you have to employ to understand lift. And then you have to get really granular. So in this view, it's one example of a creative analysis and one example of a media analysis. On the left side, every bubble you see here is a different creative execution for a specific client that I'm showing here. The higher you go to the right, the more media weight was put behind it. And the higher you go on the y-axis, the higher the conversion rate. So notice that blue bubble versus a green bubble actually represents a 30% lift or increase in conversion rates. So understanding both the creative and the media becomes very, very important. Understanding it in real time and being able to act on it much faster than we've been able to in the past. Same thing on the network side, is understanding what networks drive what conversions. And here in this view, it's actually a non-extrapolated number. This is where we become very transparent with our analytics. We're very transparent in how many television sets we measure. And again, anytime you look at a report, if it doesn't show this transparency, there is a reason for that. And then finally, predictive analytics is hugely important, because not only do we need to arrive at a conversion rate and a lift measurement, we got to go the other way and predict where we're going to find conversion. So in this example, we look at a particular client's web visitors, and we can segment those between new prospect and existing clients. And we basically say, well, where do those user bases and segments index highly for in television? And are you already buying those? Because we know the entire media schedule. We detect every ad. So this almost becomes like a stock trading board, if you will. We know if this stock is going to go up. We predict if it's going to go up. We know your position in it. And based on that, we make a recommendation. And that goes in both directions, right? You have a lot of programming and day parts that can index highly, and some that are going to do poorly. So, in conclusion, TV attribution is extremely difficult. It isn't easy. It isn't something you slap together, grab some data, put it into some model, and spit out some results. It really does require an end-to-end solution that can run on an ongoing basis, where the data has been vetted against other data sets, and the analytics have gone through the rigor of being vetted through other models. And I was hoping we'd have time for a question, but it's 8, 7, 6. So one more thing. Got to have industry benchmarks, because as we talked about, you can certainly establish your own benchmarks, but it's really important for our clients to understand what their conversion rates and lifts and what their optimal frequencies are by the different kind of categories. And of course, you got to have scale to be able to generate this type of data. And with that, I always love to hear feedback from people. I'm just Sean at iSpot.tv, and I thank you for your time.
Great job. Thanks, Sean. Thank you so much. So wonderful. We're starting to talk about data. Let's take a quick break. Try to be back here at 3:15 if we can. And we're going to dig into data even more deeply. It's 3:20 right now? I mean, well, in 15 minutes, sorry.